Is the T-Mobile Revvl 6 Pro 5G worth buying in 2023? Well, in this video, we're going to find out. Now, this device was launched back in September of 2022, so it's not necessarily even that old of a phone, but at the same time, since being launched, there have been a lot of other options that have reached the market, so I figured this video would be a good opportunity to kind of look back on this phone to see if it's still a worthy option. But let's take a quick look first and see what all comes included here in the box. So here's the box the phone comes in. You can see right there the T-Mobile logo along with Revvl, and then on the back of the box we just have some regulatory information, and then included is a SIM card removal tool. We have some literature, and we also have a USB-C cable for charging and data transfer. Now with this device, we're getting a very large 6.82-inch display. Now the display itself is LCD, it is 720p, we're getting a PPI of 263 and a 20.5:9 aspect ratio. So a more narrow but taller form factor here with the phone. Now overall, with having a display that's as large as this, it really makes this phone ideal for content consumption, whether that's going on social media, reading an ebook, reading an article, or even watching video content. All of that is going to be great on such a large canvas. Now, this display isn't necessarily the highest end out there, that's for sure. The viewing angles aren't necessarily that great, but for a phone that's as affordable as this one, you really can't ask for too much. Now with this device, we're getting a water drop notch up top here and a little bit of a thicker bottom bezel. So overall, this general form factor and design is certainly nothing new, and definitely very similar to many other phones that I've covered here on the channel. But the front-facing camera with this device is 16 megapixels. Now take a look at my full review video that I made of this device a while ago to see a variety of different photo and video samples from it. But overall, this phone definitely has some decent cameras. They're certainly very capable, especially considering that this phone is very affordable. Now internally, with the T-Mobile Revvl 6 Pro 5G, we do have 128 gigabytes of storage along with microSD card expansion. Now having that much storage is very impressive considering this is an affordable device. So I'd imagine that for most people, they'll have no problem getting through the entire lifespan of this phone without even being close to filling up all of that storage. But if you happen to, then you can always offload photos and videos, for example, onto the microSD card to at least free up some space. Now another awesome thing about this device is that it does feature wireless charging. This is probably one of the few phones in this price segment that actually has that feature, and I really like wireless charging for a variety of different reasons. The first perk of having wireless charging, of course, is that you can just put the phone on a Qi-compatible wireless charger and have it immediately begin recharging. So that's very convenient and definitely a lot easier than having to plug in the phone via the USB-C port every time you want to recharge it. But another benefit of having it too is that if you happen to accidentally damage the charging port on the phone, then at least you do have an alternative method to actually make sure the phone is recharged. So most likely, you probably won't even end up in that situation, but it's certainly nice that we have multiple ways to actually recharge the device itself. Another awesome thing about the T-Mobile Revvl 6 Pro 5G is that it does feature a fingerprint sensor on the power button. So let's give that a try right now. And as you can see, nice and fast and responsive. Let's try that one more time. So there you go, it works very well there. And in addition to that, the phone also features face unlock, so I do appreciate that we have multiple methods here for accessing the phone. Now with this device, we do have a quad camera setup on the back of the phone, and the cameras that we're getting here are a 50 megapixel main camera, a 5 megapixel ultra wide angle camera, a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera to assist with portrait mode, and we have a 2 megapixel macro camera. Now here's how things look on the camera app on the device. This is with the standard main camera right now. Then from here, we can then move over to the ultra wide angle camera, so we can fit a lot more content into the frame. I'm definitely a big fan of having an ultra wide camera, and I certainly do use it with any phone that does have that feature. I especially find it useful when I'm on a vacation, for example. Maybe I want to capture a photo of a large building. Definitely that comes in handy in that situation, and just kind of changing up the look of the photos in general so that not everything looks exactly the same as it would with just the standard camera here. Then from there, we can go over to the More tab and access the macro camera and get very close up here. So that's certainly useful in certain situations. We can also then head over to live focus, which is what they're calling portrait mode. And with that, we get those nice blurred out backgrounds. You can even adjust the blur if you want to as well here. So that's useful. Now, one downside though with this phone, and I do think it's a pretty big deal overall, is that we do have a very nice front-facing camera that does offer some really good quality, but there is no front-facing portrait mode to be found. You can see that even though we're in the front-facing mode, there is live focus here, but when I go to that, it flips things back around to the rear camera. So that's definitely very disappointing. There really aren't too many phones that I've covered, and especially, I've covered phones that are a lot less expensive than even this phone, and they do have portrait mode for the front camera. So not having that here is very surprising to see, and I really wish it did have that feature. So certainly keep that in mind if you are considering getting the Revvl 6 Pro 5G. Now again, fortunately with the front-facing camera, the quality itself is good, so you can certainly take some great looking, usable selfies, but just keep in mind that you're not going to be getting those blurred out backgrounds. Now, this device does support 1080p video recording for both the front and rear cameras, which is nice, but keep in mind that there is no 4K video recording. So if you wanted to take 4K videos to put on your 4K TV, then you cannot do that here with this phone. Now, as far as processor and RAM go, this phone does have 6 GB of RAM paired up with the MediaTek Dimensity 700. Now, with that processor, you should actually expect to get pretty decent performance, especially considering that this is a budget phone. So you'll have no problem doing phone calls, text messages, going online, emails, watching video content, some light gaming too. All those things will be great with that processor. Now, if you are somebody that spends a lot of time on your smartphone, maybe that's your favorite hobby, I don't know. If you're always on your phone, then I do think you probably will be frustrated by this device being relatively slow. But again, for a budget phone like it is, I feel like we're definitely getting a lot of value here with the processor that we're getting. And then also keep in mind that we are getting 5G connectivity with this phone. Now, can you get by without 5G? Sure. But at the same time, if you're going through all the time and effort of getting a brand new smartphone, you may as well get one that does have compatibility with your carrier's latest and greatest network. Now, I did run a benchmark test using Geekbench 5 with this device, and here are the scores from that test right now. You can see I got a single core score of 539 and a multi-core score of 1599. So what I recommend doing is running this test on your current phone and then comparing your scores to these scores to get a better idea of whether or not the Revvl 6 Pro 5G even is going to be a performance upgrade compared to your current device. So certainly something worth checking out there. Now, this device does feature a pretty large 5,000 milliamp hour internal battery, which is very impressive. We're also getting Android 12 with this phone, and it does run pretty much a stock version of the software, which is great. And then we're also getting an NFC. So if you do like to make mobile contactless payments using tap and pay, then you can definitely do that here with this phone. And that can't always be said for lower end devices. So that's definitely a feature that I personally use all the time. It saves me a lot of time and I don't have to pull out my various credit cards and all that. So I'm glad we have that here with the Revvl 6 Pro 5G. And then taking a look at the hardware of this device, it's really nothing too special. The phone is made completely of plastic besides the display, which is made of glass. But on the left side of the phone, we just have the slot for the micro SD card and SIM card. On the right side, we have volume up, volume down, and then the power button, which doubles as the fingerprint sensor. I do like that we have this magenta T-Mobile accent here, so kind of a nice touch there. Then up top here, we have a noise canceling microphone, and then on the bottom of the phone, we have the 3.5mm headphone jack, microphone, USB-C port for charging and data transfer, and we have the speaker. Then on the back of the device, nothing too special. I do appreciate that it is a matte finish versus it being a glossy finish because you don't really see a whole lot of fingerprints, even though you do see some. And then we also have the quad camera setup there and T-Mobile logo. So in general, I think the T-Mobile Revvl 6 Pro 5G is a very practical phone. Certainly nothing too interesting, but at the same time, I think most people are just looking for a good, practical phone that gets the job done and can handle phone calls, text messages, and all that. I know there's a lot of people that don't want to spend $1,000 on a smartphone, for example, and they just want something that can cover the fundamentals. And if you're that type of customer, then I think you definitely might want to consider getting the T-Mobile Revvl 6 Pro 5G. I think really the only thing about this phone that I am not a fan of is that there is no front-facing portrait mode. So I really wish it had that. But this concludes my video on the T-Mobile Revvl 6 Pro 5G in 2023. Let me know what you think about this device, and if you currently have it, I'm really curious to know what your experience has been like. But thanks again for watching, and I will see you in the next video.